Hey Kendra, welcome to your video essay. Let's just jump into it.
I can't count the reasons I should stay. One by one, they all just fade away.
Let me set the scene for you. It's 3 a.m. I'm lying in bed. I can't sleep. What am I doing? I'm watching season 6 of Community. Something about the fast-paced dialogue and the predictability that comes with having watched it over a dozen times, really, it just lulls me into a deep slumber. And so you may be wondering, well, you've seen it so many times, what's your favorite episode of season 6? It's episode 3, Basic Crisis from Decorum. That just so happens to be our topic today. Isn't that a coinky-dink? Now, I've watched this episode so many times, I've started to dissect it like a Russian novel. And I know I say that and you think now that I'm grasping at straws, but I swear there is a lot to discuss in here. Our friends from Entertainment Weekly, specifically Keith Statskowitz, says the show makes varied use of its spaces, finding all the nooks and crannies of storytelling they can in Greendale's impossible geography. The college is like a TARDIS. It's a lot bigger on the inside. Similarly, the show can stuff a lot of story into a space as small as a meeting room. And I think in this article, he's referencing the bottle episode-like nature of this episode, but I think this can also be true when discussing the set design. If you take a look at the blackboard in the beginning of the episode, you will find what I believe to be the thesis of this episode. When you lower your expectations by 5 inches, you reduce things in meaning. This is the thesis of the episode. And also a dick joke. If you have not watched this episode yet, like I told you, I need you to stop what you're doing and go watch it. Otherwise, this video is gonna suck. Please and thank you. Bye. Here's a brief refresher. Annie receives a late night warning about City College planning to release an attack ad, claiming Greendale gave a degree to a dog, Ruffles. The Save Greendale committee is gathered for a meeting. The goal is to discredit Ruffles. This doesn't sit well with Annie. She believes in and has high expectations for Greendale. She would rather hope that a dog couldn't receive a degree at her school. Jeff and Abed, mostly Abed, go to work on a counterattack ad discrediting Ruffles while Frank and Annie investigate the validity of these claims. They find Ruffles' extensive transcript. Luckily for the school, not so much for Ruffles, she has $15 in unpaid library fees, keeping her from her degree. Although presenting this evidence to the TV station could withdraw the original ad, Annie insists that it's unfair to pull the ad off of a technicality since technically Greendale is the sort of school where a dog could get a degree. Annie holds the transcript hostage and threatens to transfer to City College if they pull the ad. Frankie agrees to her terms, and Annie packs up her locker, leaves the school, and starts filling out an application for City College. In the morning, Abed shows Annie a revised ad the team made after she left. One where the dean admits that Greendale has a lot to improve on, being that a dog did almost get a degree, but that just shows that no matter what or who you are at Greendale, hard work pays off. Annie returns to Greendale, her faith in the school and her friends restored. Chang shows off his newly shot porn. Season 5 and 6 of Community are becoming less about the individual characters' lives, and they've shifted focus to those characters' relationships with their school. Greendale is becoming a microcosm of the human experience. Annie is the protagonist of this episode, so her emotional journey with Greendale mirrors the broader theme. It's a progression through 3 acts: denial, discredit, destroy. Does that sound familiar? It should sound a little familiar. These are the 3 points that Jeff outlined in his plan of attack. It's kind of like Jeff is the writers and he's like reaching through time and space, trying to get it all to click, being like, here are the puzzle pieces, follow these puzzle pieces. And you know what? I did follow, I listened, I was a good student. So let's start with stage 1, denial. While Jeff and Abed are busy denying Ruffles' claims, not a lobster, not a student, not a good dog, Annie is doing a lot of denying herself. Despite things looking bad, Annie denies the degree accusation and is holding tight to hope. There's no way that Greendale gave a degree to a dog. Right? Annie expects more out of Greendale. And on top of that, what does it say about her if she goes to a school that gives out degrees to dogs? Looking for some encouragement and a little bit of hope, she asks Frankie what she thinks. What do you hope, Frankie? And Frankie shuts her down. Frankie does not hope and comes at her with this killer line.
But what do you hope is true?
Oh God, no, I never hope. Hope is counting in advance. Hope is Faith's richer, bitchier sister. Hope is the deformed, addict-bound, incest monster offspring of entitlement and fear. My life results tripled the year I gave up hope in every game on my phone that had anything to do with farming. What's true will be true, Annie. Our job is to deal with that truth. Iconic. Frankie and Annie find that truth. Ruffles was a student at Greendale and has a really, really long transcript. Annie comes face to face with the downside of hope. Disappointment, an emotion that can be hard enough to deal with in the best of times, let alone at 3 a.m. Obviously, the next step in saving the school is discrediting the dog. They claim she has 27 children with 5 different fathers, stole cookies from a Girl Scout, has worms, and has impersonated a lobster. Side note, telling the world that she's a single mother of 27 trying to get a degree, I side with her more. She's a bad bitch. Ugh. Annie is no longer in denial. She does admit, okay, Ruffles was a student here at Greendale, so now she's just kind of left to try to protect herself and her grades by discrediting the school. Essentially, Ruffles' education is not just an attack on the school, but it's an attack on Annie and all of her hard work. Up until this point, she has believed that Greendale is a better school than City College, worthy of her pride. She's given her entire adult life to this place, and she spent the past 2 years trying to make it a better place for others to be, but she's been left down by her school. Even though Ruffles never received her degree, Annie's expectations for Greendale weren't met. A dog almost got a degree here, and would have if it weren't for some bullshit bureaucracy. Let the ad play. Discredit the school, it deserves it for letting her down. But now her friends are about to let her down. Frankie tries to bring her back to reality. If being better than City College means letting them destroy us, what's the point? But Annie's a bit more concerned about her previous expectations for the school. And if surviving means being like City College, what's the point? Annie is not only discrediting the school, but she is given up completely on hope. And now it's time to destroy her relationship with the school and her friends. So upon my first few viewings of this, I did find these next scenes to be a little bit superfluous and also like a little quiet. And at first glance, yes, it does look like Community is just indulging in that extra runtime that's allotted by streaming on Yahoo. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Yahoo did at one time have a streaming service. Nobody really watched it. Annie just told us that she was going to leave Greendale and apply to City College. Why are you showing us scenes of that? But I don't think this was a necessary filler. These clips of her taking down her locker, applying to City College, they kind of serve to close the chapter on the denial, discredit, destroy. And furthermore, I think the abrupt silence of these scenes is serving to separate Annie from that fast-paced, quick-witted environment we've come to expect with Greendale. Luckily for Annie, this episode doesn't end with destruction. Her friends hear her and help her find her hope again. They even run a new ad inspired by her. You know the one where the dean says, yes, this exceptional dog did almost get a degree and we have a lot to work on, but look, when you work hard at Greendale, it does pay off. This brings us all the way back around to the thesis of the episode. Lowering your expectations reduces things in meaning. Denial, discredit, and destroy were kind of just used as a vessel to get the point across. And the writers don't sugarcoat it at all in this episode. Hope and high expectations are difficult. Annie's hope and expectations, they do waver. and disappointment does get the best of her. But what is Community about if not stories of flawed people coming together and finding support amongst friends? Annie's friends help her find hope again, and they rise to her high expectations. Yes, her high expectations did influence an intense emotional response in the first place, but because of those high expectations and those hopes, she's able to attach more meaning to life, and we can see this in her overall character. I think Jeff is set up as a foil to Annie in this episode. You can see in the very beginning the attack ad does upset him, but he quickly brushes it off. He's too cool for emotions. If his expectations were already on the floor for Greendale, this isn't gonna bother him. By refusing to acknowledge these feelings, he's keeping himself from benefiting from that intimacy that hope and high expectations can give us. The thesis of this episode is mirrored and then expanded upon in the end card. Yes, that story about the kid being yelled at his father for ranking up data charges. I wasn't sure if adding this part would be too much, but looking back on it, while writing this essay, I realized it's the cherry atop the sundae, okay? It's not just restating the flavor, it's adding a whole new flavor. It's giving us insight into what happens when we lose hope, what happens when people lower their expectations for us, and what happens when we lower our expectations for ourselves. So if you don't remember, this episode ends with an origin story. The teenage boy in Japan who's been pranking the dean is getting yelled at by his father. He's ranked up 40,000 yen in data charges. According to exchange rates.org, on the day of this episode's premiere, March 25th, 2015, this would equate to approximately $333.89 USD. And if we're to account for inflation, that would be $432.27 USD as of July 2023. Takashi's father goes on to give an Oscar-worthy performance. I will be giving you my best rendition of the English translation. I'm so sorry, but I want you to think about these words. 40,000 yen in data charges. I'm looking at my son, but all I can see is the ghost of your uncle. I imagine many people look the same when you reduce them to finance. I am the enemy because I'm the edge of your world. But once your eyes move past me, they will weep. Tokyo is a machine, caked in blood, running on flesh. I reduce you, you will learn true reduction. You will be as small as me. That was hard for Takashi to hear, and I'm sure that was difficult for you to watch. Takashi then scrambles for some kind of comfort, some sign that not all hope is lost. And he proceeds to contact what I can only assume is the only person he has. He comes clean to the dean about what he's been doing, and he apologizes for making fun of him, but the dean doesn't believe him. Presumably, the dean is holding on to hope that this is really Jeffrey, and Jeffrey really does love him and want him to deliver him olives. In a voiceover, we learn that Takashi often thinks about this night. It was a small event, but it ultimately led him to getting away with Takashi and becoming Ioban, the leader of the Yakuza. I did have to look this one up, but according to Google, the Yakuza is a Japanese organized crime syndicate similar to the mafia. Keith Statskowitz, our bestie from Entertainment Weekly, he just thinks this is Community adding a little extra comedy, indulging in that extra Yahoo runtime. But I think this end card is really important. It's serving as a contrast to Annie's story. Without meaningful connections reminding him of the emotional anchor of hope, Takashi loses his path. And this is what happens when we lose hope. We become leaders of syndicated crime groups. I think this episode is so compelling to me because I really resonate with Annie. I'm optimistic and I set high expectations. I will not be commenting on whether this has anything to do with my unemployment. Thank you. The pessimists like Jeff like to think they're so tough and that people who hope are just naive. But really it's the other way around. I'm optimistic and I hope because I know that I'm strong enough to deal with the pain that can come with disappointment. I may be afraid of disappointment. Who isn't? But I'm not afraid to face it. When you lower your expectations, you reduce things in meaning. But when you hold on to hope and believe in something greater, You elevate the meaning of every experience. Okay, in all honesty, this only like scratched the surface. I had pages and pages of things I noticed in this episode that I wanted to talk about. I had a John Green TikTok I was going to reference, but I thought it would be better if I just condensed that all into a cohesive narrative for you. You're welcome. My next footage made no sense, but basically what I was trying to say is, in conclusion, I'm going to leave you with an Emily Dickinson poem that I think summarizes my thoughts on this topic pretty well. Enjoy. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. I hope you liked it. Have a great day. Love you, miss you. Bye.